Julia Hartley-Brewer and Sam Armstrong still with. We've just been talking about those protests in Epping. Well, let's talk to someone who was actually there, because we see a lot of footage and, there have been clashes. Well, who started the clashes and who was actually doing the clashing when you've got protesters often from two very different sides? Let's talk to Orla Minihane. She's not just the Reform candidate for Epping who attended the protest, she's also a mum, like many of the other women who were at that protest yet again yesterday, objecting to large-scale group of young undocumented migrants being put into a hotel in the area, the Bell Hotel. A very good afternoon to you, Orla.
Good afternoon, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thank you for joining us. I was looking at I know you spoke to Mike last week, and I was looking at your social media content, and it's very, very different from a lot of the reports you see in the media saying clashes outside, asylum hotel. Your footage was very different. It was a lot of mums, a lot of people smiling, videos of people singing Rule Britannia, Come on Eileen for some reason, which I loved. Tell us what you saw at that protest.
Okay. So there is a really, really dangerous narrative that is being spun around this, and it is being spun by a certain sector of the mainstream media. I've been to every protest. There's been about 5, I think, so far. And yes, the first one was very, very peaceful, and it was all locals. Then the second one, which was the Thursday, where the police were escorting the lefties, if you like, so the protesters up from the station to meet.
Well, they were escorting the extremists, because socialist worker people, they are extremists.
Correct, exactly. And the thing is, they're not from Epping. Most of them aren't even from Essex. So they've come to Epping by train. They were met by the police. They're given banners and they're given posters that are all pre-printed. Who's paying for them? They then come up and they walk towards us. When the confrontation started, they then get bussed away. And then the people who are there, the men and the boys and the people who are protecting their communities, are understandably angry. Yep. So they then clash with the police. And then it's made to look like right-wing thugs have kicked off, blah, blah, blah. So that's when I stood up that day. And I stood up and I stood on the back of a truck and I said, look, this is not what we're here for. This is why we're here. We're here to protect our kids. We're here to protect the community, etc. So that scenario of that rioting and the fighting and the God knows what went on with the police was the thing that everybody has promoted. Everyone's showing. That's the footage everyone's showing. Yeah. Since that night, there has been no trouble whatsoever. Last Thursday, I was with maybe 200, mostly mums. We walked in the rain. We walked from the Bell Hotel up to the council offices where there was a 7 p.m. meeting, and we stood outside. I went into the council chambers and we said, we do not want these undocumented men here. We want our children to be safe. We want our ladies and older ladies to be able to walk their dogs. We want women to be able to walk home from the station at night. That's not too much to ask.
No.
There were hundreds of police, Julia, hundreds of police walking with us in the rain, and all these ladies that you can now see on screen. Yeah. Peacefully, we were chatting to the police. It was fantastic.
Yeah, so it's just very, very different. And the reality is, of course, people, you say there've been 5 protests before, but before the protest started, there's been concern for a long time about this. And not just in Epping, elsewhere as well. People write to the council. We've now got the Police and Crime Commissioner of Essex saying, we want this hotel closed. The hotel originally had a house on asylum seekers, but they were mostly families. It was closed down, and then suddenly, out of the blue, reopened, and it's all young, as you say, undocumented men. And then, of course, we had the allegations of sexual assault against a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. A man has been charged from the hotel. We've seen this elsewhere as well. We've seen some of the crime stats involving other migrants that would suggest there is an issue with young men arriving here illegally who have from cultures which are very alien to our culture, and their attitudes towards young women, teenage girls in particular, is not acceptable to most of us here.
And Julia, the thing is, the things that we've heard about, so those 2 incidents of sexual assault are not the only ones that have happened. They're the ones that have been publicised, but there has been mums that have come up to me in the last few weeks saying, my daughter was this. this happened to my daughter. My daughter was grabbed. My daughter was spat at. My daughter was... They've gone to the police and nobody has listened. There is only so long a community, and especially mothers, will tolerate the abuse of their children and their sisterhood.
Well, then we go Mama Grizzly, don't we? Because
then
we have no choice.
Very angry.
But here's the thing. Why do you think that the police and the local council, why do you think they haven't been listening? Why do you think they've ignored those concerns?
I think they've ignored those concerns for several reasons. A, because there is this constant rhetoric of, we don't want what happened in Southport last year. We don't want you, be careful. We don't want you to get arrested. Be careful what you say. It might be perceived that you're racist. So people are scared. We've got to a stage now, people don't care, Julia, because they're thinking, if I've got to go and protect my daughter, or I've got to go get arrested and sit in front in a police station, or potentially, go to court, then so be it, because my child means more to me than anything else. And as a mother, you know full well, the most important thing is the safety of your children.
Yeah, and that I think let's face it, for the dads as well, and this is a concern.
And the dads as well, of
Do
course,
you think? I mean, Nigel Farage, you're a Reform candidate as well as a local mum. Nigel Farage has got, again, as always, he points out, the mass scale of illegal, boat arrivals. Everyone in the mainstream media and the mainstream politics shouts racist at him. The British public are going, not racist to be concerned about this. He points out that we could be facing, trouble. The two-tier police can be. And last year, again, he was right. And British public agree with him. And then he's saying that we could be facing some serious violence and clashes if this issue isn't dealt with the people in these migrant hotels. Again, he's right. Anyone paying attention knows he's right, but then he's blamed, oh, well, you might be responsible for some of this happening. Do you think that we are going to see this turning to violent clashes here and elsewhere?
Do you know what, Julia? I think if we were allowed, if concerned parents and concerned siblings and aunts and uncles and grandparents are allowed to demonstrate and show their distaste for what's going on in their local communities, there would not be any violence. We're not going to fight each other, but if the police bring in agitators, then there's going to be trouble.
Yeah, and again, they're very, very critical. They're very critical of what they call the far right arriving, but then they accused a lot of people of that in the Southport riots. And again, as we discovered in reports that have looked into it, it was largely local people. It wasn't people who busted. It wasn't started online, a lot of this. It was just local people who were concerned and upset and angry each time. But again, if it's the far left, those are the good people. Those are the nice people. So that's okay.
Yes. And why are they coming in, Julia? Why are they coming to do what?
Well, they're telling you what you think. They're telling you that you support having undocumented men in your local hotel.
Let me tell you the most hilarious thing. Yesterday, hundreds of them came into Epping. They had banners. One banner said, quote, "The enemy does not come on boats. It comes in limousines."
What? What does that even mean?
We were laughing. I was like, what? I was saying, is anyone coming in a limousine tonight? Just ridiculous. They came, they were shouting. I can't even repeat on air what they were saying to us. And do you know what we did? I said to the guys at the front, let's not engage. Let's turn our back and walk away. And we did. We put on music. We sang Come On Eileen. Yeah. We were dancing around. They got so angry.
They would have hated that.
15 minutes, they left.
Yeah.
And there was not one bit of... no violence.
That is the tip. I think people should be out protesting, but it's got to be peaceful. Don't give these people, don't give the police, don't give the government, don't give the hard left, supposedly anti-fascist, but absolutely supporting every fascist regime going. Don't give them what they want. Stand firm, but stand up for your kids. Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much, Orla Minihane, Reform candidate for Epping, but more importantly, a local mum concerned about these young men, undocumented men in those hotels. Sam Armstrong, it's really interesting to hear from her on that, and this is the way. Peaceful protest. You're in a democracy, peaceful protest, but the authorities seem to be almost intent on stopping these protests being peaceful, because then, of course, they can blame people.
Yeah, and just a message to the mums who are being gaslit, in my view, to be told that this isn't a thing, that these people are no more likely to do anything. There was a report out in today's Sun newspaper. 40% of charges for sexual offences in London, 40% are from foreign nationals.
Yep.
The most overrepresented group are Afghans that have
by a long way,
who have recently come to the UK, and we know that the truth about that has been covered up, officially covered up. So if you have seen these men moving into your neighbourhood, if you are concerned, if there have been evidence in your local community that your children are under threat, be reassured that the evidence, the data, when it is closely scrutinised, backs up your concerns, backs up your fears. There is an issue, these are problems, and you are entitled to expect your government to deal with people breaking into this country and not to allow them to move them into your neighbourhood and leave them there unsupervised around your kids.
I mean, if they're all so great, move them into Downing Street. There you go, that'll solve the problem. The Prime Minister, by the way, on his way right now to meet in Scotland at the Turnberry Golf Course with the Donald Trump, running, I think, about 35, 40 minutes late already. These things happen.